I hereby call this last meeting of the third session and last meeting of the 2022-2023 Iowa State University Student Government to order. We will begin with roll call. When I call your name, please say here or present. Agba. Becker. Braun. Bruick. Present. Burks. Here. Cecil. Present. Dre. Eisma. Here. Engelken. Here. Frencher. Here. Gopa. Here. Hackbarth. Here. Heidenreich. Here. Holiday. Here. Kamstra. Here. Kuehler. Present. Mahoney. Here. Margaret. Here. Mays. Present. Moskar. Momini. Patel. Schnepp. Here. Slade. Here. Slater. Here. Tansey. Here. Topete. Here. And Vo. Here. With that, we do have quorum for the evening. We'll now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance led by Speaker Mahoney. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now turn the podium over to President Jacob Ludwig for the third State of the Student Body address. If I could have all senators and persons in the room put their computer screens down to give Jacob our full attention, that'd be much appreciated.
Good evening. I will try and keep this brief, but with the third session of the 65th Student Senate coming to an end, I have one more of these addresses on the State of the Student Body to give. And I chose to wait till this last meeting because I wanted to share a relatively complete vision of the work that we completed this year. In fact, for those of you keeping score, you will note that today is exactly 365 days since we were sworn in. That's 2 days left for those of you all keeping count the other direction. But with a full year to consider, I sat down earlier this week and started writing this address, and I kept thinking about the concept of a legacy. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. First we have to ask, what is a legacy? It is something passed on or left behind. And for us, our legacy is going to be the things that we did and the tasks that we left undone. I know that there's a lot of people in this room, probably almost everyone in this room has some sort of project, initiative, or bill that at some point during this year they wanted to get done that probably isn't done and probably won't be done by the end of this meeting. I know that personally Vice President Ulrich and myself would have liked to see more work done down at the state capitol and in the area of International Student Career Services. Those were two areas where we didn't see a lot of meaningful work finished this year for a number of various reasons. But, legacy is a lofty word to throw around at a student government meeting. I am fully aware of that. I don't imagine that many students outside of this organization know who we are and what we do. And that in itself is a part of a legacy passed down to us by previous student governments. And indeed, it will likely be a part of our legacy that we leave behind for the next one as well. Student government's chief challenge during my time in this organization has been trying to find a way of engaging the student body at large in our efforts and our decisions. We have tried many different methods and tactics, and there's a lot of work to be done. I think anyone who reflects on the number of students who turned out in the most recent election can say that we need to do a better job of engaging the student body and making them aware of why what the work we do here is important. It is up to the next leaders of student government, our new president and vice president, and the new Senate, to redouble our efforts of being a broadly recognized organization and a part of student campus life. And I do want to note real quick that while the work that we do here in student government is important. We are all students. And we cannot and should not try to turn this into a full-time endeavor, as much as I have tried to these past 5 years. And ultimately, this is a proving ground for leaders. And each year, we will find new successes and new failures, and those will shape our legacy as an organization. And so I don't want to leave you with the impression tonight that we don't have a legacy to be proud of this year. As an organization, we pursued bold initiatives and projects this year to empower students. With 1/3 of students suffering from food insecurity, we took major steps this year to ensure that they can have access to the support they need. Over the next 5 years, we will be investing $350,000 into SHOP that will help them purchase supplies, including international food and hygiene products. We've also put our financial backing behind several other projects that will expand the way that SHOP can combat food insecurity on campus. In the area of student health, our Health and Wellness Committee has done a fantastic job this year under Director Everest, from helping put on this Party Smart tailgates to the new Cyclone Support website that will be going up, I think, June 1. And we've seen new and vigorous focus on creating a health-conscious campus that supports students through whatever challenges they may face. In fact, just today, I'll share this, maybe stealing the thunder from Director Everest, but we received word that the majority of the menstrual product dispensers that we allocated funding for this fall have been installed here in the MU, with the rest to be installed pending some renovations in part of the building. So that is a fantastic project that is now almost fully complete. And in the area of sustainability, we've outlined new funding for solar-powered recycling compactors and composting initiatives, which will make it easier for students to live sustainably. And over at SciRide, you knew I was just going to talk a little bit about SciRide tonight, we have finally received our first electric buses and are actively pursuing a plan to convert a portion of our fleet to 100% biodiesel, which will drastically reduce the amount of carbon emissions from the SciRide bus fleet. If you're interested at all, SciRide will be hosting an open house for the electric buses on April 29th. That's a Saturday. Both of these initiatives, as I said, will contribute to our continued efforts to reduce emissions and be a model transit agency for the nation to look to. And additionally, we have reinvested in student journalism through an expanded contract with the Daily and commemorated the 100th anniversary of Jack Trice's death with a historic investment in the Jack Trice's Character Award Scholarship. I want to keep tonight brief because I know that we have a lot of bills on the agenda, but I do want to say there are a lot of initiatives and events that I'm not mentioning. A lot of that is for brevity, and many, if not most of those things deserve praise as well. And I think if you've run a project this year, I want to thank you for the time and dedication that you've put towards that initiative and the work that you put in for supporting students. Nevertheless, I will leave you with this, and I think we can summarize this year in this way. Because of the work we've done, students will be empowered through greater food insecurity, accessible health resources, newly empowered journalism, larger scholarships, and expanded sustainability programs. And I think that is a legacy that anyone can be proud of. So with that, I will yield for questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for President Ludwig? Seeing none, thank you. We will now move into open forum. This shall serve as a time for any student to speak about matters concerning the student life here at Iowa State. If there are any students here for open forum, you may approach the podium at this time. If you are speaking for open forum, I ask that you say your name and major, and then you'll have 10 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Kit Claiborne, for those of you who don't know me. Currently serve as the Finance Director for Student Government, and I am majoring in Animal Ecology and Biology here at Iowa State University, and I am under the College of Cows. So hi, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Stipends Bill. I get the intention of the bill and want cabinet members to get rewarded for the wonderful work they are doing, but a financial reward is not the way to go. Iowa State Student Government is unlike others. Our budget is mostly for students outside of our organization, and we're the only ones that do this. We're the only school in the Big 12 to allocate this much money to student organizations. I just want to bring attention to a problem that finance has brought up during our meetings. Something we do in finance is to think of something that will potentially have other student organizations following. If we give stipends to cabinet members, what is stopping senators who put in more hours, if not the same amount of hours, of their time to this organization from wanting the same pay? What is stopping other partnered or sponsored organizations to not request similar stipends to pay their executive members who have done wonders for this campus? Cabinet positions are volunteer positions, not ones that require payment to function. The current positions that receive scholarships have to meet quotas. Chief officers have to represent student government at meetings with administration, and me, as finance director, has to go through the annuals process and fund student organizations around campus. I encourage all of you to have a discussion on this bill, but in the end, vote no. I want all of you to know that I do not want to vote no on the basis of not recognizing our cabinet members, but voting no on the basis that we don't have it in the budget to give $14,000 more to us and potentially increasing that to over $50,000 just internally. I want students to know that their hard work is not going unnoticed. We have changed campus in many ways, just as President Logan has said just in this year. But if we want to give recognition to our cabinet members, this needs to be a longer discussion that has to involve finance director and the finance committee involved in every single step. Thank you.
Are there any other students present for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move on to adopting the agenda for the evening. Is there a motion to do so?
Mr. President, I move to strike 2022-3-028F from the agenda as contained.
What is the title of that bill?
Funding Puerto Rico Students Association.
There's been a motion to strike 2022-3-028F, funding Puerto Rican Student Association, from the agenda. Is there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, that bill shall be struck. Is there a motion to adopt the agendas newly amended?
Mr. President, I move to adopt tonight's agenda.
Is there any objections to doing so? Seeing no objections, the agenda shall be adopted. We'll now move into the approval of the minutes of last meeting. Is there any objection to postponing the approval of the minutes from last meeting? Seeing no objections, they shall be postponed. We'll now move into our final committee reports of the year, starting with Rules and Speaker Mahoney.
Hey everyone, so Rules Committee had a pretty long meeting. We saw lots of different matters of business. We saw a hearing for a senator for next term, starting to get a few nominations in. There's 3 at this time, so those nomination bills will be the first things on the agenda for next term, so we can get those senators seated right away at the beginning of the term. Rules Committee didn't feel it was within their authority to break a tie for the College of Design due to some nuances with how the bylaw 2.3.3 is actually worded, or Rule of Order 2.3.3 is actually worded. So they voted not to break the die, which basically means College of Design will be left open through inauguration, and eventually Rules Committee will probably nominate somebody at a later date when the new Rules Committee is formed for next term. We also saw all of the bylaw bills and Rules of Order bills and the contract. All of them passed favorably with varying voting thresholds of either UC or 4 to 0 to 0. A couple of them do have some amendments. The committee overhaul bill being the biggest one has the most amendments. A lot of that was just adding changes that kind of got missed that needed to be part of this project, which is asset, the 2 biggest ones being asset and the legislative ambassadors, now committee as it's being called in the bylaws. Otherwise, creating cabinet stipends does also have no bias out of Rules Committee with some very, very heavy amendments. So please read through all those as we come to them.
Are there any questions for the Rules Committee? Seeing none, we'll move into Finance with Finance Director Claiborne.
Hello, y'all. For those of you who don't know, this is my last update ever. So, kind of emotional right now. But, so funding Puerto Rican Student Association was tabled in committee. There was some miscommunication within us and them, so we had to table it. Funding men's rugby was sent favorably. Should be pretty easy. They're going to finals, and if they do make finals, they will they're going to the Final Four. If they do win that, they will go to the finals, and they said, I think it will be in Las Vegas. And then asset priorities was sent favorably. Chapter 12 changes was sent favorably, very minor changes, just for clarification for future finance directors. Again, if you do have any questions on that, please ask. And then the lecturer's contract was also sent favorably. Again, for that contract, there was no change in the dollar amount, just changing of dates so they can have clarification and funds for sure for the next few years.
Are there any questions for the Finance Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Public Relations and Director Haas.
Hi, everyone. So currently I'm working on the newsletter, and that should go out either tomorrow or Friday. So I've been working on that, and I'm really excited to send that out to all of you. We have our last committee showcase tomorrow. We'll be showcasing Rules Committee. We're working on the senior showcase. Also, on the Microsoft form, I forgot to ask for pictures. So if you're a senior and you filled that out, can you please send me a picture of yourself? I apologize for that. And then we had our gaming event last night. And speaking of that, please let Sundar know if you have any last outreach credits you need recorded. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Director Haas and the Public Relations Committee? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to Diversity. Senator Frencher.
Hello. So our International Student Town Hall is tomorrow at 6 p.m. This is where we learn about problems that international students are experiencing and start talking about solutions we can take to address these problems. So I encourage everyone to come if you have time and learn about these problems and also contribute towards the conversation for solutions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Diversity Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Student Initiatives and Senator Mays.
Yeah, we had our last meeting on Monday, so all of our events have been wrapped up. We kind of talked about what went well, things that the committee might want to do in the future, and I'm just really proud of my committee and everything we were able to do this semester, and I'm very thankful for everyone who participated in our events and helped us get to where we were this semester, so thank you guys.
Are there any questions for the Student Initiatives Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Local Affairs and Director Eaton.
Hi, everyone. Local Affairs met on Monday, and we just wrapped up, so final topics. Also from City Council, with the living in vehicle situation, Council has decided to not move forward with any ordinances. And also, Habitat for Humanity has been approved to start work in the Baker subdivision, which is a little bit south of campus. So if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, please be on the lookout for that soon.
Are there any questions for our Local Affairs Committee? Seeing none, move on to Sustainability with Director Vanderkamp.
Hello, everyone. Just like all the other committees, everything is kind of wrapped up, but like May said, I'm very happy with the committee this year. We've done a lot of great things. Specifically, around $60,000 to $70,000 has been allocated to sustainability-related projects and resources, which I'm really excited about. And then we've also have the largest amount of representation on the university sustainability committee that we've ever had. So I'm really excited to see some voices and students specifically being represented well in that. And we documented a lot of the projects. I know that the transition document for next year is going to be over 200 pages, so I'm really excited to see them continue doing all that next year. So good luck, whoever has to read that. And please apply for the at-large positions or director and all the other exec positions as well. But great working with you guys this year.
Are there any questions for our Sustainability Director and Committee? Seeing none, move on to Health and Wellness with Director Everest.
This is your last time having to hear me give an announcement. Whether that's good or bad, I'm going to leave up to you. But I have just a couple announcements. Reminder to sign up for the Out of Darkness Walk. It's April 29th. That link is in the Teams chat. Remember, if you're willing and able to bring some non-perishable items to inauguration, just 1 or 2 things a person would be appropriate to donate to SHOP as kind of one last health and wellness project. I'm going to push that project up until absolutely the last minute of my term. I know that shocks nobody. Up for on a bill tonight is the bylaws that will create my position and my committee. Please read over those. Please ask questions. We want to make sure that those make the most sense and that they're going to be effective and efficient. So please look at those with some care, because I had no guidelines going into this role, and I would love to leave some for the person after me. And then, as President Ludwig mentioned, the dispensers are up. I'm not going to cry, I promise. But I just want to thank everyone for your support on that bill and in that project. It was like 10 months of work, and we are finally able to have those products available for gender-neutral students or gender nonconforming students in those neutral spaces. So thank you. That's a huge step for students in that community, and just for students in general. And then I wanted to thank you all just for a wonderful year, for all your support with the committee and all the projects that we do. I know that's a lot. But yeah, just wishing you all the best. And now that it's warm outside, please wear sunscreen, please drink water, take care of yourself. I dropped it.
Are there any questions for our Health and Wellness Committee? Seeing none, we'll now turn it over to the Judicial Branch for any comments from them.
Good evening, everybody. We got some wonderful weather tonight. A great night for us all to maybe go out after this and celebrate for those people that will be leaving Senate. Or you can save your time for Friday, where we can all officially celebrate that. I just have a few updates from the Judicial Branch, other than that comment. Last meeting, we selected our new Chief Justice pro tempore. His name is Charles Taylor, and hopefully in the coming year, most of you will become aware of him. He is a likely candidate for the Chief Justice position for the upcoming year, and I think that he's looking to take on that challenge, so hopefully you guys will see some awesome things from him here in the future. The posters that you guys all graciously funded were a success. We had numerous people reach out to me asking about the position and wanting to learn more about what the court does, and I got to refer those people. So yeah, great success. Thank you all for funding that. I appreciate it. And the last thing is the last time that the court met, we had our court case, Momani v. Election Commission. If you're interested in seeing the opinion on that, you can either reach out to me, or I'm going to make sure that that is on the judicial branch's part of the Iowa State website. So that's all from me.
Are there any questions for our Judicial Branch? Seeing none, we'll now turn it over to Sophie for her comments.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations, you made it to your last meeting. I just wanted to say good job to everyone for the year. And if you ever need anything between either now and the end of the semester or moving forward, please know that my inbox is always open and my door is always open. If you are not continuing with the organization, I'm still happy to help in any way. And if you are, I'll see you next week. So yeah, thank you for a great year, and I wish everyone luck on finals and everything else.
Are there any comments for our advisor, or questions for our advisor? Seeing none, we'll now turn it over to the Executive Branch and President Ludwig.
I'll keep my tears for closing comments, but real quick, a couple things. State of things. We may have 2 days left, but there are 2 more episodes of the State of Things that are going to be made. So watch out for an episode with Barb Neal, who's the director of SciRide, and Jeff Johnson, who's the president of the Alumni Association. I know that you guys are all going to be clamoring for that, so some of them will come out after the term. Well, actually, both of them will come out after our term is expired. So if you're leaving student government, still keep an eye on that student government YouTube page. Additionally, inauguration this Friday, 6 p.m., Great Hall, Memorial Union, 2 days. If you have any questions about the event, if you suddenly cannot make it, please let me know. We just want to make sure that we have a good head count so we know who's going to be there. But other than that, really excited to see you all there, have a good night, and to celebrate a really fantastic year. Other than that, I think if you have any questions about either the renewing the lectures contract or the fee process bill, I'd hand in both those things, and we all know that I wouldn't mind having a speaking privilege at Senate one last time. So I'll yield.
Are there any questions for our executive branch? Seeing none, we will jump into external matters, starting with 2022-3-029F, funding men's rugby with Senator Eisma.
Hi, everybody. If the representatives of rugby could approach. I know they just walked in. And then if you two would like to state why rugby is asking for funding.
So we're asking for funding for mostly for travel, or for travel to go down to Houston, playing a national semifinal for our game, I guess, this weekend. It's something we didn't budget for during like the sports club budgeting meetings. So we're asking, I guess, we're requesting the money to be able to like help, I guess, be able to help us get down there. Do you have anything to add?
You young? Perfect. The floor is open for any discussion or questions that we may have for our representatives. We'll start with Senator Kamstra.
Welcome, fellas. I have two quick questions. One, do you guys know who you'll be playing?
We're playing Sam Houston State.
Awesome. And then what is your guys' record on the year?
We are
Undefeated.
Undefeated. Heck yeah.
We're
Cool.
like, what, 7 or 8-0?
Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to get some more information for everybody
for
here.
sure.
So good luck to you. Safe travels to
Thank
Iowa
you.
State.
Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to closing debate at this time? Seeing no objections, no closing comments, we'll move into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain, starting with Agba. Yes. Becker. Bruick. Yes. Cecil. Yes. Eisma. Yes. Engelken. Yes. Frencher. Yes. Gopa. Yes. Hackbarth. Yes. Heidenreich. Yes. Holliday. Yes. Kamstra. Yes. Hewler. Yes. Mahoney. Yes. Margaret. Yes. Mays. Yes. Patel. Yes. Schnepp. Yes. Slade. Yes. Slater. Yes. Tansey. Yes. Topete.
Yes.
Vo.
Yes.
With a vote of 22. Braun. Yes. And Burks. Yes. With a vote of 24-0, the motion carries.
Thank you.
We will now move on to 2022-3-025SA, renewing the lectures contract with Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey all, so this is the lectures contract. We almost saw it and voted on it last week. Yes, last week, but some confusion that I'm not putting any blame on anyone, as Finance Director Claiborne has so graciously corrected me on. No blame on anyone, but that had some miscommunication that led to it not being in its appropriate form. But this contract is basically identical to the current contract in value. All it does is renew a new contract for 5 years out until 2028, yes. The reason for this new contract is that Amanda up in lectures has been wanting to schedule out people, I believe like 2 years in advance, and because that's how far out booked they are. But she didn't want to do that without having guaranteed funding in 24, and currently she does not. So this is just renewing it early to allow her to do that with the guarantee that she will have the money to pay the people she's negotiating with. So that's all this really is. It adds the new cancellation process that's been introduced into a few new contracts as well, and other than that, it is identical to the current contract. I yield.
The floor is now open for any debate that there may be on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to closing debate at this time? Hearing no objections, Vice Speaker Bruick, closing comments. Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain? Ogba?
Yes.
Braun?
Yes.
Ruick?
Yes.
Burks?
Yes.
Cecil?
Yes.
Eisma?
Yes.
Engelken?
Yes.
Frencher?
Yes.
Gopa?
Yes.
Hackbarth?
Yes.
Heidenreich?
Yes.
Holliday?
Yes.
Kamstra?
Yes.
Hewler?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Mays?
Yes.
Patel?
Yes.
Schnepp?
Yes.
Slade?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Tansey?
Yes.
Topete?
Yes.
And Vo.
Yes.
With a vote of 24 to 0, the motion carries. We will now move into internal matters, starting with General Orders 2022-3-034Y, formalizing the student government student fee request process with Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey all, so this is the first in a couple of bylaw changes that we're going to be seeing tonight. This is one of the shorter ones, kind of short and sweet. So talking to President Ludwig, it was his feeling that the current way we request our fee from the university's special tuition, fee and tuition committee was kind of lacking. It effectively boils down to what he and the finance director want. And while they're certainly smart, capable people, we don't really operate on the whims of just two people in this organization typically. So this creates a full process. It starts with the finance director proposing an initial figure that has to be done by the first Senate meeting of the second session, so the beginning of the proper school year next year. It has to be sent to Finance Committee and approved by them by the second meeting of that session. And then it kind of changes depending on what happens. So if they recommend no change to the fee, then nothing has to happen. That's just our formal fee request. If, for whatever reason, the Senate at the time feels that it's not appropriate to not change the fee, that there is a need to increase or decrease it for whatever reason, the Senate then can introduce a bill to change that figure that then requires signature by the president and is subject to veto and all the other, anything that happens in a bill. And then if it changes the fee in any way, then a bill has to be passed by Senate to approve it. Both of those processes have a deadline of October 1st to be completed. This is because the fee committee meets by a certain time and we have to have a fee proposal ready at a certain time. And in the event that there is no proper fee proposal before sent out of student government by that time, then it becomes the discretion of the nominees to the student fee committee from student government. So that would be the president, the finance director, whoever is nominated by the president, and whoever the Senate elects from its membership. Those four people would then be the ones trusted to make that determination in the event that we effectively deadlock. So that's this whole process. And then finally, it makes clear that the student government appointees to the committee are not bound to agree with our and vote in favor of our fee request. It's just the process by which we propose it. They don't have to follow it if they disagree with it and dislike it and wish to vote against it. With that, I yield for discussion.
The floor is now open for any debate on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to ending debate at this time? Seeing none, Vice Speaker Brewer, closing comments. All right, we'll now move into a vote. All senators in favor of the motion, please raise your placard. Probably the first time we've done a placard vote. All noes. And abstentions. With a vote of 24 to 0, the motion carries. We'll now move on to 2022-3-032Y, adjusting eligibility requirements for the Green Initiatives projects. Senator Kuehler.
I will yield my opening speaking privilege to Senator Engelken.
Yeah, hello. So basically an issue with the Green Initiative Fund bylaws was that they did not at all match the Green Initiative Fund form. There are a lot of different points on there and they didn't quite match up the way I'd like them to. So I changed the bylaws to be more similar to the form, and I also redid the form to be more similar to the new bylaws I wrote. So hopefully there will be less of a discrepancy there. So basically, if you were to look at the old version and then this one, the stuff that changed are that I added points on environmental justice, environmental health, and biodiversity, because those were on the Green Initiative Fund form. And I think they're really good points to highlight in the Green Initiatives Fund. And also, I added all students, staff, and or residents of Ames to just students, and the point about educational opportunities, because I think it's really important to tie in Ames to the Green Initiatives Fund. And I also took out a bullet point about benefit a large part of the ISU campus or connect the university to the Ames community, because that is very broad. That could be anything. So I took that out and then added the point in the educational opportunities to kind of bridge that gap in a way. So I basically just did that. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I yield.
The floor is now open for any debate that there may be on the bill as a whole. We'll start with Senator.
Mr. President, I move the Rules Committee amendments.
There has been a motion to approve the the Rules Committee amendments. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to approving these Rules Committee amendments? Seeing none, they shall be approved. Senator Heidenreich.
Cool. I noticed there's some funky spacing in, on the actual bylaws thing. Is that just to get it to transfer over to the bylaws itself?
That basically just happened when I redid the numbering.
The funky spacing will not be carried over once it's put into the bylaws. If you've ever written a bylaw bill, you've got to funky space it to make it look correct in these.
I
so it
assume
just
as
look,
such.
and some things have been changed since the original document, I believe. So it looks ugly, but it just kind of happens.
I suspected as such. I was just asking out of curiosity. Cool. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the bill as a whole?
Question.
Question has been called for. Is there a second? And seconded. Is there any objection to ending debate at this time? Seeing no objections, Senator Kuehler, closing comments. No closing comments. We'll move into a vote. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to passing this motion by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objections, the motion carries. We'll now move into 2022-3-033Y, the committee overhaul bill with Vice Speaker Bruick.
Hey, also, this is the biggest, I believe. I guess I didn't actually compare, but I just assume in my mind it's the biggest bill, probably the biggest bylaw bill we've seen this Senate. It's effectively an omnibus bill that fixes a whole lot of things dealing with committees. The most notable things that are done, big picture, are taking the DEI committee from its current position in the bylaws, which is under the director of DEI, and putting them in the Senate committee section, like the Senate committee that they effectively are. It just was kind of a quirk of when the original committee bylaws were passed, and we just never fixed it. So we're fixing it now. We're adding the director of affordability to sit on finance committee, adding the director of IT to PR committee, adding a seat for a Supreme Court justice to every committee except for rules and finance, making the director of student services the chair of the Student Initiatives Committee, and therefore getting rid of the independent chair of the Student Initiatives Committee position that the Senate has historically elected to chair that committee. Adding the asset liaisons and the nonprofit coordinator to local affairs. Adding the entire Health and Wellness Committee and the Director of Health and Wellness to the bylaws and Senate rules. Changing how the nonprofit coordinator's position works. There's a few changes with how we're interacting with asset with regard to who is the lead person with them, and that's being reflected in the bylaws. And then we are creating some language that relatively bare bonesly, but with enough to make it some sort of formal thing with some formal rules. Add the legislative ambassadors to the bylaws, and that, I believe, is all the major changes. There's a few things with language and the awkwardness and weirdness of how the language was originally written that I fixed. PR committee's bylaw or Senate rules never actually officially say that the senior director of communications chairs it, despite it being a duty of the position. We're requiring that the director of outreach requires confirmation by the Senate. They technically don't, although historically we still have done it. It's been silly that it's been that way and we're fixing it. And other than that, it's just little changes like that. So unless there's any questions, I yield for discussion.
Mr. President, I move to remove Senator Braun from the role and add Senators Dre and Becker.
Is there any objection to removing Senator Braun and seating Senator Dre and Senator Becker? Seeing no objections, those amendments to the roll shall be added. Vice Speaker Bruick.
I move the Rules Committee amendments.
Is there any objection to adopting the Rules Committee amendments? Seeing no objections, they shall be adopted. Senator Slater.
I just have a couple kind of clarifying questions. You mentioned the Diversity Committee, it was getting officially put into the Senate committees. Could you just would that change essentially how the committee runs?
No, there's no reason it should. It's just changing where you find all the duties and just the information about it. It just was an odd place to have put it in the first place. It gives a committee report to Senate every week. It is composed of senators and at-larges, and then one director, which is how our committees typically work. It's just, it made more sense to anyone I've talked to about this change to put it with the rest of the committees. It's not a big deal in the end of the day, I suppose, but it just didn't make a lot of sense where it was at the time, and felt like it would be better to move it over.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then what is the reasoning behind taking out the senator-elected chair of Student Initiatives Committee?
I would direct that question to Student Initiatives Chair Mays.
So this was actually a recommendation made by me. I mean, my one qualm with it originally, or like my thought was like, oh, this is kind of taking away a position that could be potentially for a senator, but at the same time, that senator could just become that cabinet position. Because right now, as it is, I mean, yeah, like you have a senator serving in that position, and then the cabinet position for student services sits on the committee. And it's just kind of like, I feel like student services doesn't have a whole lot to do as delineated in the bylaws. It's kind of up to them what projects they want to take on. This would kind of give them like a really good designated role, and it would keep SI the way it is. It wouldn't be a Senate position anymore, which it's whatever. I don't see a huge issue with it. I kind of think it would make the process of voting for it and everything like that a little bit easier, just because it's kind of weird to have the speakers and then just only one position that's a chair of a committee that's not a cabinet member is kind of confusing and weird. So yeah.
Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. And then last question I have, I mean, I'm just assuming this is the one Supreme Court member on each committee chair. That's just, I mean, we've been talking about coordination between branches. I mean, I assume that's just for that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea behind putting a justice was that it felt like they'd have a better role in student government, better connection if they were involved in more of our projects. And we explicitly put them not on rules and finance because we felt that those would be the most likely to trigger any sort of potential judicial review. It's not likely that Sustainability Committee or Local Affairs would likely give rise to too many legal issues within our own laws. So we kept them away from the issues that might give them conflicts of interest, and other than that, just gave them, the ability to be involved in our projects and initiatives if they want to be. Technically, there's nothing requiring that they be appointed to it. The seat is there. They could leave it vacant if no one was interested. But the option is now there, and it previously has not been.
All right. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Slade.
Mr. President, I move to remove Senator Burks from the role and to add Senator Mominy to the role.
Is there any objection to removing Senator Burks and adding Senator Mominy to the roll? Seeing no objections, those amendments to the roll shall be added. Director Claiborne. Would someone yield to Director Claiborne? Senator Kuehler.
Yeah, so I just wanted clarification from any people who are writing the bill. In the talks that we've had for asset, for nonprofit coordinator and asset admin, for a position to have kind of permanent position to work with asset agencies. That's the kind of problem we saw last year. I kind of just want clarification on how the bylaws read here, how it kind of works with Sophie's position as that, and kind of what the body thinks of the addition to the bylaws.
Senator Keeler needs to yield his time.
I was just going to really answer specifically having Sophie for the advisor be specifically for having the advisor be the administrative representative to the asset board. That's the second to last enacted clause, bylaw 6.1.12, be inserted to read, be the administrative representative of student government to the asset board. So it basically just decouples the student government nonprofit coordinator from the administrative duties and has Sophie, the current advisor, be the administrative representative.
Is there any further discussion on the bill as a whole? Vice Speaker Bruick. Question has been called for and second. Is there any objection to ending debate at this time? Hearing no objections, Vice Speaker Bruick, closing comments.
Vote yes on the bill. There's a lot of big, important stuff in here. The Health and Wellness Committee is awesome, and we need to have them exist, and all the other stuff's really good too, and is important to the organization and making it run good. Vote yes.
All right, with that, we'll move into a vote. All senators in support of the bill, please raise your placard at this time. All right, thank you. All senators in opposition of the bill? Thank you, and all abstentions? Thank you. With a vote of 25 to 0, the motion carries. We'll now move on to 2022-3-031Y, Chapter 12 changes, and Speaker Mahoney.
This is a pretty simple one. All this actually does, I'll yield to Finance Director Claiborne.
Yeah, so very easy bill. So as the bylaws say now, it just says undergraduate tuition, and I want it to be fair for everyone, because as it stands now, I am the most expensive tuition for in-state, out-of-state, international, and all of the other chief officers who have that besides Mahoney. So just president, vice president, they're the most majors, and then me and Speaker Mahoney are more expensive than that. And it's been the same to just do the baseline tuition. So the baseline tuition from the registrar's wording is undergraduate most majors tuition. So I just included that in there. Just so future finance directors can understand that the tuition to base it off of is the baseline, because that's what each finance director budgets for the next year.
With that, the floor is now open for any discussion on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to closing debate at this time? Hearing no objections, Speaker Mahoney, closing comments. With that, we'll move into a vote. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objection to passing this motion by way of unanimous consent? Hearing none, the motion carries. We'll now move on to 2022-3-030F, adopting revised student government priorities for asset funding, and Senator Patel.
Hi guys, so as we talked about last week, this is just asset funding. If you scroll down below, you'll be able to see the priorities and in the order that they will appear for the next upcoming year.
And with that, the floor is open for any discussion that the body may have. Senator Margaret.
Awesome. Yeah, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it about the items, but I think it's worth really quickly pointing out that when we say order that they appear, historically the sections have been tiered in priority, but we also then went through and had the individual items within them also be in order of priority. That kind of helps us when we're making decisions not have to arbitrarily pick between multiple things that are in the same category, so technically the same priority. So I yield.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move into a vote. When I call your name, please say yes, no, or abstain. Agba.
Yes.
Becker. Yes. Bruick.
Yes.
Cecil.
Yes.
Dre.
Yes.
Eisma? Yes. Engelken? Yes. Frencher?
Yes.
Gopa? Yes. Hackbarth?
Yes.
Heidenreich? Yes. Holliday? Camstra?
Yes.
Keeler?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
Mays?
Yes.
Momini?
Yes.
Patel?
Yes.
Schnepp?
Yes.
Slade?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Tansey?
Yes.
Chapete?
Yes.
And Vo.
Yes.
With a vote of 24 to 0, the motion carries. We're now moving to 2022-3-024SE, creating special rules and proceedings for floor-based elections with Senator Keeler.
All right, hello everyone. So this is another pretty important bylaw bill we have up this evening. So essentially, to explain this bill, any sort of bill that has what we call a floor-based election, so think elections for speaker, vice speaker, but also every other kind of bill that has a nomination, so seating someone to special student fees, SciRide, and the thing we had a few weeks ago for the Jack Trice Scholarship, those are all floor-based elections. So essentially, we don't really have any language in our bylaws about this process. It's just kind of a bit of a free-for-all. And this whole process aims to kind of address that. And those of you who were elected last year and were here for the elections we had for speaker and vice speaker, I'm sure some of you will remember, particularly with the race for vice speaker, that there were something like 4 candidates. And the issue with our current system and having no language in this process is that every single speaking privilege, you get 5 minutes. And if you ask a question to every nominee and one nominee happens to take 3 minutes, the rest of that time has to be shared between the nominees. Now, we have kind of a loose process that we've followed in years past, and essentially kind of how that works is the nominees give their opening speech, we ask them questions, and then sometimes, not always, we will ask them to leave the room so Senate can have a more private debate to kind of discuss what the nominees have said. And then we'll ask them back to potentially ask any more questions. And then after that, we vote. So essentially, all this is doing is putting this in writing. The biggest change is in the first stage, so that's the debate stage, or the questioning stage, my apologies, is it's changing it so when you ask a question, you can only ask one question in your speaking privilege, and every nominee gets 1 minute to answer the question. So every nominee will get exactly 1 minute to answer the question. And the reason why that this doesn't carry over to the debate stage, or the clarification stage, I apologize, is because the clarification stage is designed for if you have specific questions for a nominee, like Senator X, you said this in your opening statement. Why, well, essentially. So more direct questions for nominees. That's pretty much it. The amendments are just because Vice Speaker Bruick had a piece of legislation that was passed in the bylaws, and my personal copy did not have that in there, so it's just moving it one more down. But I open the floor to debate, and I yield.
With that, the floor is now open for any discussion on the bill as a whole. Vice Speaker Bruick. Is there any objection to adopting the Rules Committee amendments? Hearing no objections, they shall be adopted. Senator Mays.
I'm very in support of this bill, and it almost seems kind of targeted because last time when we had the vice speaker election, there was a time where I literally had 10 seconds to answer a question, and I went in the hallway and cried. So you should vote yes for this to prevent that in the future.
Senator Eisma. Is there any objection to removing Senator Heidenreich from the roll? Hearing none, he shall be removed. Speaker Mahoney.
I just caught something here that I didn't catch earlier, and that's if a piece of legislation like this fails, meaning it didn't get the 1/2 vote on the actual bill as a whole after the elections happened, we wanted that to basically be immediately reconsidered, but I figured it would be worthwhile to introduce a automatic 10-minute recess so that people can quickly figure out running, talk about it, figure things out, and the presumably speaker or vice speaker can write the new bill. quickly. We do this with annuals, as we've seen, having those kind of automatic 10-minute recesses. So I figured it would just be appropriate here. So I will move the amendment reflected on screen.
It has been moved and seconded to strike and substitute some language in 1.19.10 on the bill. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Senator Becker.
So we would only recess if it doesn't pass? Yeah. Okay.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to closing debate on the amendment at this time? Hearing no objections, we'll now vote on the amendment. Unanimous consent has been called for. Is there any objections to passing this amendment by way of unanimous consent? Hearing none, the amendment shall be adopted. We're now back on the bill as a whole. Question has been called for and seconded. Is there any objection to closing debate at this time? Hearing no objection, Senator Kuehler, closing comments. There's no closing comments. We'll move into a vote. All senators in support of the bill, please raise your placard at this time. Thank you. All opposed? Thank you. And all abstentions? Thank you. With a vote of 23 to 0, the motion carries. And for the final bill of the night, I will be recusing the chair to Speaker Mahoney.
All right, everyone, we'll be moving into 2022-3-013Y now with Senator Holliday.
I yield my speaking privileges to Vice President Ulrich.
Yes, good evening. I hope we've all had a great last meeting of the session and of the year. And I just kind of wanted to explain basically the story, the process, the due diligence that was done by myself, Senator Holliday, and Senator Engelken that we'll be seeing. So this bill kind of started out of the recognizing that our cabinet members do a lot of work for this body and for the general student body. And personally, as vice president, I work alongside a lot of these cabinet members, and kind of the term, man, I wish we were paying you, was said a lot by myself, and it was said one too many times for comfort. And so then I asked myself, well, why aren't we paying them? And so being a previous member of the IRHA, I was the director of events, kind of referencing their model in IRHA, they currently do a structure where they do fund stipends for their cabinet members, or their directors as they call them. And so really started off with this bill modeling their system. And so as you can see on the screen, there's a lot of pink because as this bill was originally proposed and put on first read, it highly referenced the structure of IRHA, but as we'll discuss in a few minutes, that has all changed. And so moving forward with the project, we really wanted to see, first off, what other Iowa Regent schools were doing. And so I personally reached out to the president, vice president of the University of Northern Iowa and the University of Iowa to see if they were doing anything similar to this and how they were doing it. And to my surprise, both universities already currently do. They fund flat rate stipends to all of their equivalent positions on their cabinet. And all of those stipends are funded through their student fee dollars that they collect. And so we wanted to kind of do further research into how other schools are doing it. And so I reached out to all 14, the 2 incoming and the 2 leaving, Big 12 schools. So out of the ones that responded to my emails, West Virginia, Kansas State, the University of Kansas, the University of Texas, and our friends over at the State University of New York all currently do some form of stipends for their cabinet members. And so then with the guidance of our advisor, Sophie, we had conversations with student legal, university human resources, and the finance receiving office to ensure that a program like this would even fit into the current state, federal, local laws and like the rules and procedures of the university. And from all of those meetings, the bill before you with the Rules Committee amendments does comply with all laws in university rules and procedures. And so I really wanted to talk about the revisions that happened to this bill. And so obviously this bill was introduced and put on first read 3-4 weeks ago now. It was held in committee, and a lot of that was done because of the constructive feedback that was received by all of you and other people that had knowledge of the bill. And so myself, Senator Holliday, Senator Egokin kind of all created these amendments moving forward, kind of changing really the entire process of how stipends would be funded to cabinet members, and then they are before you tonight as rule committee amendments. And so I really just wanted to kind of focus on the big things that are changing and that I really want to make sure that you note. And so now the bill will fund stipends that includes all 14 cabinet members, not just a select few, and that all stipends are now a fixed $500 per semester as proposed under the amendments. And then if acting Chair Bruick could go down to the bottom of the bill. We have a system that kind of accounts for the differing days in which a cabinet member may be approved by the Senate or if a cabinet member resigns early. And so this system is just simple algebra, so think back to your college algebra courses. We have an equation in there, and you can reference the bill, but it's 500 divided by X, that ratio multiplied by Y equaling Z. And so the 500 there is the $500 for the stipend. The X is the number of days in a given session, including the weekends, and so that's just a simple pull up a calendar count. The Y in there is the number of days served in the position, and the bill also accounts for several clarifications of like special one-off caveats that may happen. And then
30 seconds.
Finally, the Z is just the final amount that'll be paid out to cabinet. And so we are very excited to finally be able to present this bill to Senate and enjoy conversation that may be put forth. And with that, I yield.
All right, there's been a motion to add Senator Heidenreich to the roll. Is there any objection to doing so? All right, he shall be added. We'll start off debate with Senator Engelken.
I move the Rules Committee amendments.
All right, there has been a motion to move the Rules Committee amendments. Is there any objection to doing so?
Point of information.
Yes.
Why is 12.5 strike?
Does anyone have?
So 12.5 is a holdover from when, the 12.5 is being struck, yeah. It's a holdover from when there was a chance that a cabinet director would not receive a full stipend, in the fact that the Rules Committee amendments have made it so that there is no possibility of a cabinet member not receiving the full value, at least of the number of days that they've worked under the equation. There's no need for us to have a possibility of going into closed session to discuss whether they should get the full $500 stipend, because they're getting their full stipend for however much they've worked under the equation. So that's why that's being struck.
All right, is there any objection to adopting the Rules Committee's amendments? Seeing none, they shall be adopted. Back on the bill as a whole. Starting with Senator Mays.
So I first want to say I do really appreciate the effort you guys went through to like compare what other universities are doing and things like that, and also just obviously the care and consideration of cabinet members who obviously do put in a lot of work. But I just don't like this bill very much for a few reasons. So and Kit, when he spoke earlier, really hit on one of my biggest points, and it's that finance director, speaker, all of those positions, they have specific like rules within the bylaws that they have to follow, and it's a certain time requirement, all of those things. Who's to say that next year, not to like judge whoever is picked for cabinet or anything like that, I have no idea who's the next cabinet's going to be, but who's to say that the director of health and wellness next year is really lazy and doesn't want to do anything? I don't feel comfortable giving them a stipend when, we've had directors in the past do so much more. Like, I don't think there's a way we can judge who deserves money and who doesn't within student government unless they have those delineated rules that say you're giving this much time that's almost equivalent to a part-time or full-time job every week to this organization. And I just don't like taking funds away from students that could be given to them, you know. That's all I have to say.
All right, Senator Cecil.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work here. I appreciate the ideology behind it. I can understand why we should be rewarding people that work within this organization. Everyone here does a lot of work. But with that being said, everyone here does a lot of work, and not everyone has their job specifically spelled out. Those that do get compensated for it. The others should create it as they go, and we hope they do a great job. But we've had senators that do the bare minimum. We've had cabinet members do the bare minimum, and I just don't think without specific qualifications it's fair to take money away from students that they have given to us to give to people within the organization. I yield.
All right, Senator Tansey.
Would, Vice President, would you yield to a few questions? Yeah. I'm just curious, what was the original intent of the bill? Because I know there were, not all the cabinet positions were on the original bill, so I'm just curious why that was.
Yeah, so that language has been struck, and so we can keep conversation pertaining to the bill, but I mean, I don't know, I don't think it's very germane to talk about things that currently aren't before the body.
Sure. Thank you. Kit, Finance Director, would you yield to a few questions?
Yeah. My main question, oh, sorry, to me.
You're good, you're
Yes, you can ask me questions. I will have someone yield time to me later so I can ask questions. Yes, you can ask questions to me. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so the way I read the bill, this would start Friday, like with the new session.
It would start with the new session, so yeah, so 2023, 2024. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know what account this would come from? Like, is this operating? Is this
It's not
discretionary?
stated where we would get that 14,000 from. It is also, don't know the actual language, but it would go through the operating account, through our budgeting, but to supplement that 14,000 would most likely be through special projects.
So we have no idea how we would fund this bill for the next fiscal year.
As it stands, yes.
Okay, thank you. So on top of those questions, I have a list of things that I have big problems with this bill, and I appreciate all the work that went into it, but there's a lot of issues here that I think could blow way out of proportion if we pass this bill. For one, our sponsored and partner organizations, our precedent has been we have zero funded any sort of salary, any sort of wage, any sort of stipend. So if we start creating salaries, stipends, and wages for ourselves, that only sets the precedent for us to provide those to other organizations on campus. Not only other organizations on campus, but senators. You know, I'm sure we would all like to be paid, right? I mean, in a perfect world, everyone would like to get paid for their work. But at the end of the day, we have to look at being fiscally responsible. And we are, and Finance Director Claiborne, you can correct me on this, but we are increasing our student fee by $5 potentially?
Correct.
I cannot justify paying ourselves when we are asking more money from our students. And with that, I would urge a no vote. I yield.
All right, on to Senator Becker.
Okay, so I too would like to say thanks for the work that went into this.
My main takeaway is that we just, like, I feel like this bill doesn't consider an outside perspective. So I asked, my sorority, my sister's sorority, a lot of my classes, this intramural volleyball team. Like, I was just asking random people what they thought about this. And every person was like, that's actually ridiculous. Like, that's student dollars. And we don't get to elect the people that are getting paid. And we know we don't elect the finance director, but like, if you vote for the president and then the president gets paid, that's a little better than someone getting paid and you had no say in their election. And then my other thought is I do feel like it is just a bit insensitive to other major groups on campus. This week is the perfect example, the fashion show, right? Like the fashion show directors are putting on multiple events every week. They're coordinating with Steve Madden. Like they are working so hard and they're doing that just out of passion and grit. I would hope that we are also a club, truthfully a club, that works for the good of the people and not for money. So I'll also be voting no. Thanks.
All right, Senator Schnapp.
Yeah, I also want to state that I'm really happy with all the work you guys put into this bill, but personally I'm against this bill. And the reason for this is because I think that if it's a paid position, then it will be treated as a job. And this will deter students that we want for applying to these roles. And that's the exact opposite of what we want as student government in general. I feel like we're trying to bring student government up, bring awareness of it. And if we say we're paying these people for student dollars, they're coming out of their paycheck, that's gonna look negatively on student government rather than positively. And then I also get that as a job, you need to have certain quotas and you need to have that kind of mindset for a job. And I'm afraid it's going to take away the passion of student government and the passion of all these projects that people are doing. If they get paid, they're going to say, I have to get this done at this time because I'm getting paid to do this, rather than I want to do this because I think it will benefit the students in general and also benefit Iowa State. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm against it as a whole. But I also want to state that this is not going to be the case for all people who are on cabinet if they do get paid. It could be one or two people that would have this mindset, but I still think it's important to not have anything like that in our student government cabinet. So yeah, I yield. Thank you.
All right, Senator Hackbarth.
There we go. Okay. So my biggest question is, you mentioned that you reached out to a lot of other Iowa colleges and other colleges in the Big 12. Do we know their student fee? Do we know how much they charge their students? Because if they're charging their students some exorbitant rate of $75, or if it's smaller than us and it's $35, I think that would impact how I view this bill. Because if they're charging their students $75 and they can afford these cabinet stipends for their directors, well, I'm obviously I don't want to raise up our student fees that much to cover this. If they're making it work with, $35, what are they cutting out of their budget? So I just kind of want to know that information, if you know.
Yeah, so most other schools have kind of a range anywhere from about 30 to 60, so we're kind of in the middle of the pack. Some schools actually don't even have a fee, they just receive a flat rate from the institution. So the institution just gives them, $200,000 a year as an operating budget. So that's kind of the general range, but we're not too far below or really too far above most of our peer institutions.
Okay. Good to know. I had a second question.
We don't know if that's right, but we Googled it, and Iowa is 75, or it's 73. I don't know if that's
Okay.
so yes.
So with that in mind, if Iowa's is $73, we charge our students around $44 right now, and we're raising it up to be about $50. I personally don't want to have to tell students, hey, you're going to have to pay $75, but 12 of us get paid now. That, for me, feels a little, frankly, yucky, for a lack of better term. And with that, I yield.
All right, Senator Kuehler.
Okay, so I know in rules and also hearing some of the discussions with Finance Director Claiborne, there did seem like there was some intention to not start, if this bill were to pass, having it start next fiscal year. So not this next term, but the term after that. Mr. Vice President, is that still the case? That you would like that beginning at the start of next year?
Yeah, so that conversation was very briefly at least brought up in the Finance Committee, but no action was done by them. I know that idea has been floated around and may be better for the fiscal year. It just wasn't something that was addressed in Rules Committee with the rest of the amendments. So yes.
And Finance Director Claiborne, do you have a preference if we start this term or next term?
Yeah, I'm not comfortable voting on anything that that won't go into effect until next year, because this will go into effect FY25, and this session votes on stuff that will go into effect the next year. So I'm not comfortable for this body to vote stuff that I won't see and that some individuals in this organization won't see, which will go into effect July 1st of 2025.
Okay, and if that's the case, would you recommend we make a motion to amend the last enacted clause to reflect this going into effect next term, or term after that?
No.
Okay, and then I'll yield to you because I know you had questions.
Thank you. My biggest thing is why aren't other chief officers included in this? If this is passed, cabinet members will be paid more than chief officers. So I just want to know why none of the other chief officers that only have a parking pass, because parking passes right now are $610, they're increasing to $660, and that is significantly less than $1,000. So I just want to know why they're not on the list if they also have quotas to meet.
Yes, so I'll take that one. We actually kind of started this as a potential pilot program in a way, where we kind of try out the concept, see basically what happens. We thought this through an insane amount, so I'm not trying to make it sound like we don't know what will happen. But anyways, you could, or anyone on the floor could definitely add the cabinet position or the chief officers, and I would also potentially entertain a motion to just do the 3 chief officers that don't get any scholarship.
Yeah.
There we go. Because that would be less money and it would be a decent pilot program essentially. But we didn't add them in just because we kind of wanted to start out with cabinet and maybe entertain a separate bill or an amendment and see what everyone else thought.
Okay. I do have one more question. So we had something similar in the past. The student government was passed and then it was revoked. I kind of just want to know from the authors of the bill, why do we think that this future student government is different than past student governments who have revoked these stipends before?
Yeah, so you were actually the one that made me aware of that, and I spoke with Jamie Barker, who's the head honcho over there at COA, and these stipends that were done in the past were specific to the president and vice president. So they were getting the scholarships that they currently get, the parking passes, and then on top of that, those 2 positions were getting a stipend. Those were done away with, don't quote me, 10 years ago or so. It was kind of a big platform point that the slates back then ran on, and so those ultimately did go away, but those were specific to the president, vice president, on top of all of the current compensation that those 2 positions currently receive.
Okay. So just why do you think that now we should start funding cabinet positions?
So I do see like a bit difference of what the bill currently is proposed as and what previously happened, whereas cabinet positions currently do not get any compensation, and the stipends that were provided in the past were in addition to the 3/4, and the parking passes. And so we're kind of going from 0 to 500 to a few thousand to, even more, and that was reduced. And so it's kind of that, it's a different situation.
All right, we'll now move on to Senator Slater, sorry.
Yeah, so a couple things. I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I mean, a lot of people have been saying the same things. A couple different things. I know we have amended it to include all cabinet positions, and I admire that. On our bylaws, in 4.3 is composition of the cabinet, and one of the cabinet positions that is listed here is webmaster. That is not included in the bill. Is there a reason?
Yeah, so that is probably a concern to bring to Rules Committee. If you're in student government, currently we don't have a webmaster, and we haven't for a few years. And specific to the bill, with that in mind, that's why we listed out all 14 to exclude the webmaster, because why fund something that doesn't exist?
Okay, yeah. Like I said, echoing things, but with that, I will yield my time to Director of Governmental Affairs, Philippi.
Okay, I'm going to keep this short and somewhat sweet. So this bill, to say the least, is a little bit embarrassing. We are volunteers in student government, and I'm going to repeat a specific word, volunteers. This bill also incorporates real money, not monopoly money. And so this is a very expensive pilot program that we're going to play with. We are here to help benefit Iowa State University students and campus, not ourselves. There are a lot of things in life that are going to be hard and take up a lot of time, but guess what? That's life. This bill is selfish and egotistical, and as a former senator and current cabinet member, I am shocked that such a bill is even being considered. Thanks.
Senator Slater, do you yield?
One more quick thing I remembered. In opening comments, we had referenced some other universities. Just personally, I don't think it is a fair assumption to compare these, as some of the ones mentioned do have their student governments in a lot of different fashions, a lot of different makeups, and I won't go into that, but yeah, with that I yield.
All right, Senator Kamstra.
All right, time for a different opinion. I am in favor of this bill because I've seen the effects that stipends can have, though I don't know if I agree with the amount or the accountability aspect of it, because I think those are great issues that have been brought up tonight during discussion. I've seen this as a great tool for incentivizing positions within fraternities to, one, be run for as an organization that has decreasing membership, decreasing interest, and decreasing knowledge on campus. I think this would be a great recruitment tool, though again, I don't know if I agree on the amount. Two, on the accountability aspect, I don't think that this would be enough to prevent somebody from going out and getting a job, though I think this is enough as an incentive to run, do a good job, and if you don't do a good job, get that incentive taken away from you, or potentially get removed from your position. So I would be in favor of seeing this pushed back, if there's a motion on the floor to push this back a fiscal year where we can add in an accountability aspect, though I don't know the wording or terminology that would be great for that. But also, if there is a scenario where a cabinet member is not doing their job, we also could potentially write a bill, even in the first session, or hopefully early second session, to add language during the first 30 days where we could revoke that, or, I don't know, add accountability measures. So I'll be voting yes, because I've seen the success this has within other organizations, though those organizations are also volunteer positions. Incentives are like a great tool to ensure a job is doing well and prevent or create a measure where you can say, hey, you're not doing a job, here's what's going to happen. I had a few other things I wanted to talk about. What was my one question? Question regarding what would it look like if we moved it back next year? I think this could be answered by Kit. If we moved it back next year, when would the fee be seen? Because I know you said it would be FY25. When would it be seen if we moved it back a year?
So if we moved it back a year, we would have the whole year to kind of, student government would have the whole year to kind of reevaluate this. And coming from finance director's standpoint, I would want this before annuals of FY25. Just so then, if this were to be passed, we have it in the budget already solidified. Because again, if this is passed, we would have to take $14,000 out of special projects, but that would have to be a bill. So it would have to be a bill next session, and it would have to be introduced next week with the new Senate, who doesn't know what's going on. Obviously, we can tell them, but a $14,000 bill for a first Senate meeting, having discussion on something that was passed last session, I just don't think is a quality debate or quality conversation from a finance standpoint. Because for finance, I want people to know the whole process, and if there is a $14,000 bill that will be introduced next week with people who don't know, with some people, new members who don't know the whole process of the bill that it's going off of, I would not be comfortable doing that.
Jaden, in your opinion, would it be favorable to potentially create a motion to table this? Like, in your opinion, would that be something that's necessary, or do you think we could amend this rule after it would be approved or not approved tonight in the next year? So essentially, can we approve this and amend it in the next year, or should we just table it to take effect a year so that way we have a year to discuss?
Are you yielding to me?
Yes, yielding to you.
I will respond in the way that President Ludwig and Chief of Staff Roberts may be more suitable to. They were freaking out back there. If you want to yield to them.
I will yield to President Ludwig.
If your interest is in allowing this to basically sit for a year so the new Senate can take time to amend rules, the final enacted clause sets immediate effect. You can set effect for FY25. So that would be the way of voting on it now but delaying implementation.
All right.
30 seconds.
That's all I have. I yield.
All right, Vice Speaker Brewick.
Okay, I have a few things. I wanted to respond to a couple things that have been mentioned, just because I feel like while there are concerns with this bill, I don't know how I'll be voting on it personally. I think there's some things that maybe are getting blown out of proportion that I don't feel are necessarily fair to the writers of this bill. For one, we've talked about student fees at other universities, and while I understand that concern, we're talking about $14,000 to fund this per year. I don't mean to say that that's not a lot of money. It obviously is. I don't make that much money in a year. But in terms of our fee, I mean, that is not going to have a meaningful impact on our fee. We're not talking about $14,000 being the difference between $44 and $75. We're talking about the difference between $44 and $44.50. I mean, frankly. I know that we raised, part of the $5 increase was part of the daily contract, and that $3 increase got us over $200,000. So we're not talking about changing our fee massively if we were to have to do this. I don't think it's fair to talk about our fee massively bloating as a result of this. It's just not something that, even if we were to extend it to all senators and all chief officers, would be more than $1 increase. And I don't mean to disclaim that. That's still a significant passed on to the students, but we're not talking about $30 here. That's an unfair, I think, unfair claim. As to the precedent of paying our partner and sponsored organizations, I would remind this body that we did just pass an amendment to the daily contract, giving them $200,000 extra dollars, $100,000 of which is specifically line item to student pay. We've done this. I mean, perhaps maybe one of the few times we've done it, but we have done this. We're not creating some insane new precedent here per se. We are doing something that in certain cases for things that we recognize as important, we have done before. And then I wanted to respond to Director of Governmental Affairs Filippi's comments. While I understand that this is spending money and on ourselves, and I know that that's a rough look, I don't think it's fair to the authors of this bill or anyone involved in this to call them egotistical or greedy or anything like that. I just don't think that that's ever been the intent of anyone here. This is a genuinely recognizing the efforts of good people doing good work and wanting to reward them for that. And however they try to intend to express that in our laws, I will never hold anything against someone who tries to do a good thing for the members of this organization, however misguided. With that, I yield.
All right, Senator Cecil.
I just wanted to raise a point that was brought up a little while ago. As a former Chief Justice, I personally do not feel that position requires any stipend of any form. Parking pass is well enough. While it does have plenty of responsibilities to it, it's a very particular position. And if there were to be stipends there, I don't think that would be one of the first ones I would go to, as there are other positions that I feel do a little bit more for this organization and the student body that are more deserving, that don't have a type of reward as of date. But other than that, I yield.
All right, Senator Mays.
So I kind of want to echo off of something that Senator Campster stated about how other organizations give stipends in order to make people want to join or have that initiative. And also kind of the statement about how we just funded the daily to pay their members and stuff like that. Student government can't be equated to any of these other organizations. Our purpose and what we do is so different from what they do. Their positions are kind of maybe a little bit more similar to a job, but being in student government relies a lot upon, you know, our initiative, our drive. We want to make change. We want to do these things not just for ourselves and not because we're working towards a paycheck, but because we really want to help students. There are so many people in this room right now who serve student government, and we put in a lot of work, and we do not give a crap about getting paid. And I just feel so uncomfortable with the idea of paying people when I don't care how much money it is, it's the message that we're sending with it too. It's just, I don't know, I really do not like this bill, and I think regardless of what other universities are doing or what other clubs might be funding their members, we're student government, and I just don't feel comfortable with this at all.
All right, before I go to the next senator, I will remind the body that we do have about 10 minutes left on this bill as a whole. So we'll now go on to Senator Dray.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Bruick as well about the daily contract and how we funded student employee pay, with the stipulation that their editor-in-chief told us they will keep them accountable for the amount of work that they do. That is how we are funding them, and they'll come back and be reviewed by us, and if we see that they are not doing that, then we can change the funding for that. So I just wanted to clear that up as well, that that is something that we can monitor, and with these cabinet stipends, it is different.
All right, Senator Momini.
I love the idea of the bill. I love the idea of being able, I know I'm kind of echoing, but I'm voicing a concern that's a little bit different, or maybe not a concern to other people. We don't know what student government's gonna look like when we're all gone in like 5, 6, 7, I don't know how long people usually stay here, years. And I'm just concerned for what it might open the door for. People might be more inclined to take this position for the money. I can't vote yes on a bill that the only requirement is that they have to be seated for 30 days. It's not good enough. It's not enough of a justification to the students, especially low-income ones who might be like, oh man, my fees just increased, even if it was $1. I can't justify that to them when all I can say is that they only have to be seated for 30 days. I don't really care how good of a job they do. I don't care how many hours that they log. As long as they're there for 30 days, it's fine. I would love to see this bill be revised to be a little bit more strict to what these positions need to do to qualify for a stipend. But until then, I can't see something like this being successful in the future. I yield.
Vice Speaker Bruick.
I just wanted to respond to what Senator Dre said. I think it's a fair point to be made. There are perhaps differences between how we fund the daily, though I would note it is still very difficult to amend a contract. It is still a 2/3 vote. So we would have, and that contract's in effect for, I believe, 5 years? 3 years, is it? Okay. I forget now. There's a lot of contracts flying around. But it is still a difficult process, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's particularly easy, but it is a fair point that there are ways we can monitor it. But I would also note that the executive branch does have the unilateral authority to effectively fire any member of its cabinet, and if it truly feels that they are doing nothing to deserve what they're getting paid for, then I think that, if anything, this bill gives them more of a reason to fire unperforming cabinet members who haven't been doing their jobs. I mean, I know we've had issues before. Cabinet members have issues, and I don't mean to cast aspersions on them. This has been a volunteer role. Things get busy. You're a student, but sometimes performance isn't up to snuff. And if anything, I think that this bill would provide more of an incentive to be proactive in talking to these cabinet members and either getting them into shape or getting them out of the position. So I do think there's a level of accountability there that may even be potentially easier than taking care of our other fundings of student pay. And further, we still have the ability to amend the stipend amounts through a bill identical to this one with a lower value, effectively. So there are ways we can keep this in check as Senate, without the input of the executive if we feel this is a bill, but it's subject to a veto override. So if Senate feels this doesn't work, whenever we want, we can just do away with this. So I think that there are ways to keep this accountable, even though it's still this yes or no, 30 days, you get some money type of thing. There are ways to make this not rewarding people who aren't doing anything. I yield.
All right, Senator Tanzi.
I'd like to yield my time to Finance Director Claiborne.
Yeah, so just for clarification, we are funded solely by student fees directly. Our organizations on campus are funded through either student affairs or other departmental funding. The only other one that is technically a student fee is IRHA, but that's only for people students who live in residence halls, not every single student. And again, to kind of piggyback off of the daily conversation, the reason they made it pay is because we want to work with them on kind of how to get away with stipends. So either a scholarship for editor-in-chief, like we do scholarships for us, and then kind of how we pay our clerks per story that an editor writes is kind of how we do clerks. So clerk is each meeting that they write minutes for, they get paid. So kind of relating the pay to the daily as we do it. So it is sort of a similar structure. So A, it's easier to see, and also B, we don't get into the stipend portion of just existing as an editor, as this bill would just be existing as a cabinet position, you would get paid.
All right, Senator Tanzi, do you yield? Senator Cecil, you are out of speaking privileges. Up next would be Senator Kuehler.
I do want to address some of the debate I've heard and some of the points I've heard. While I do agree with some of the dissent on this bill, I also don't know how I'll be voting on this bill. I'm still relatively unsure. I do think one of the criticisms that I've heard is kind of unfair. And I think it's this notion, Vice Speaker Baruch touched on this a little bit, but if you're worried about individual members of cabinet not putting forth the effort to get paid, I don't really think that's a fair criticism. Because if for everyone else, let's just say that every other member of cabinet is doing what they can to earn that stipend. If we're worried about one hypothetical or a few hypothetical people not putting in the work, then we're punishing everyone just for a few cases. And I also think, and I think it's fair to say, that workplaces don't operate like this anyway. When you have a job, I'm sure everyone who's had a job before can remind themselves of coworkers that don't put in the work and still get paid anyway. So I would say that it's a similar case here. And as Acting Speaker Baruch alluded to, Senate does have mechanisms to remove members of cabinet that are not performing their duties, in addition to the president being able to fire cabinet members that are also not performing their duties, in addition to all of the other mechanisms that we have in this bill to hold members of cabinet accountable. This piece of criticism I don't necessarily agree with. I do think most of the other criticism I have heard is pretty valid, but just not that piece. I yield.
All right, Senator Schnapp is up next, but I will warn we have 2 minutes left on this bill unless we extend debate.
I'll be really quick, really quick. Okay, I just kind of want to piggyback about what you two just said. I think that it's important to have these measures set up. I know there are some measures, but like if we look at the Iowa State, like our government website, it's been outdated for years. There's been a bill put up to like get it renovated and redone, and it still hasn't happened. So I think that there are measures there, but those measures need to be improved before we start paying other people and like on cabinet as well. Like I think it is fair that like it's unfair that there is one person that's going to prevent it, but if it prevents it from a year, then that's like, it sucks for the person that's going to be in cabinet, but then we have those measures put in and tried and trued before we go ahead and start paying cabinet members. So yeah, that's it.
All right, there has been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Seeing none, we will move into a vote. I will do this as a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Holliday.
The only thing that I want to say before I yield to Vice President Ulrich is thanks for the great debate. I'm really glad to see that everyone's taking such a large bill so seriously. And with that, I yield to Vice President.
I echo what Vice President-elect Holliday mentioned. I appreciate the debate. I appreciate all the concerns that you brought forth. I think I speak on behalf of Senator Holliday and Senator Engelken. This was a wonderful project to undertake, and it was just an idea that floated about. And we criticized and we talked about the idea specifically. And so I thank you all for that. I obviously encourage you to vote yes on this, but with that, I yield.
All right. We will now move into a roll call vote. Just as a reminder, you can say move me down and you'll move to the bottom of the roll if you're unsure when your name is called. Oh no. We will start with Senator Ogba. No. Senator Becker. No. Vice Speaker Bruick. Senator Cecil. No. Senator Dre. No. Senator Eisma. No. Senator Engelken. Yes. Senator Frencher. No. Senator Gopa. No. Senator Hackbarth.
Abstain.
Senator Holliday. Senator Kamstra. Yes. Senator Kuehler. Senator Margret. No. Senator Mays. No. Senator Momini. No. Senator Patel. No. Senator Schnepp.
No.
Senator Slade.
No.
Senator Slater.
No.
Senator Tansey.
No.
Senator Topete.
Yes.
Senator Vogt.
No.
Vice Speaker Bruick.
Yes.
Senator Holliday. Senator Heidenreich. Senator Kuehler. No. Is there anyone I missed? All right, with a vote of, with a vote of 4 to 17, or 4 to 17 to 2, this bill fails.
Alrighty, and with that, seeing no special orders and no new business, we'll now move into closing announcements. If you have a closing announcement, please raise your placard. I saw Director Shivraj.
Hello, everyone. My very last push, very last announcement. If you have not reported any outreach credits to me, please report that to me before Friday. You have until Thursday to do it. Then I will let Chief of Staff Roberts and Speaker Mahoney know who has not done theirs, and you will get nonfeasances. So please report those to me before then. And then a couple things about the end of year video that is going on. First thing, those of you participating in Shark Tank, the Celebrity Roast of Ludwig, and Hot Ones, we are moving our date from the 15th to the 21st. That is a Friday from 4 to 8 p.m. We'll be sending out an official email that will put it on your calendars as well, but please know that that date has been moved. If you cannot make those times, please let me know at your earliest convenience. And second thing, if you are participating in a Lincoln Way Take Me Home, please stay after Senate so we can record that. Thank you.
We'll just move down. Director Claiborne.
Hello. As I said, this is my last meeting tonight. I want a round of applause for my finance senator, so if everyone can give them a round of applause. Great opportunity to have this role this year. I'm very happy that we have had debates, especially tonight on this bill, but also just seeing the impact that we have on student organizations year-round. Again, for sports clubs, just funding them to get to finals and representing Iowa State as a university, and also just having discussion on bills that, like Black Homecoming we've had, Cal's Week, Rodeo Club, any big organization or big bill that you can think of. Change happens on Iowa State's campus because of you all. So I just want to applaud you all on discussions, on passing bills that are pertaining to funding. I'm sad that I am leaving this organization, but I do have to take 40 credits next year. So I will be very busy as a STEM major applying for vet school. So that is why I'm not doing it. I'll still be around on campus. So if you want to text me, I might stop by. I will stop by a COA, so I'll stop by a student government office just to say hi. And if you have any questions, if you're applying to vet school, if you have any questions, ask Charlotte, who's going to Ross University. Also, ask me. I will need support system this summer. Thank you. So again, if you have any questions relating to finance, ask Finance Committee. I'll always be here for finance and for D&I efforts on campus. Thank you.
Senator Campstra.
Glad I took precedent. Two quick things. One, I am hoping to write a letter. I don't know who to yet. I was hoping to talk to Sophia about it in our closing meeting, but essentially write a letter about online courses and whether they're strictly offered online or offered online and hybrid. Specifically, I'm relating to Biochemistry 404 right now. It's strictly online. And I don't learn well online, and that is one of the major topics on the MCAT, one of the major topics in med school, and I don't think we're prepping Iowa State students well by just offering that online. So I'm hoping to write a letter about that, so if you'd love to help me with that or provide some information, I'd also love that. Two, Beta Theta Pi, if you'd like to celebrate, we are having pie served right now to help benefit Meals for the Heartland, which helps Iowa families and families throughout the nation who may not have a meal on their table. So tickets are $5. I have them. We have like 5 different kinds of pie, and if you pay $2, you can pie me in the face. So that's all I got. Thank you for a great semester, and thank you for welcoming me to this organization.
Senator Keeler.
Oh, man. Once again, glad we take a president over President Ludwig. But given that this is the last meeting of the year, I'd like to take a few moments to shout out a few people that I noticed over the past term. I think we'll start here with Senator Anglican. I really respect the work that you've done over the past year. And if you guys didn't know this before, Senator Anglican, before she was a senator, attended something like over 20 Senate meetings in an effort to become a senator. It just took her a while because getting on UROC was difficult. So she probably attended more Senate meetings than any current senator here, including myself. So that I think that is highly respectable, and I love that about you. Next, I'd like to call out Director Everest. I really enjoyed working with you this year. I also really respect that you took a committee that didn't exist, a position that didn't exist, and you turned it into something that is really beautiful, very well functioning. I think that is very respectable. And lastly, I'd like to call out Senator Hackbarth, who won her election as a write-in, so did not expect to be a senator, and still took the position with grace. And despite all of the other commitments you have, I don't know how you're like alive. Like you can't sleep. Like where do you find the time for this stuff? But anyway, I find that highly respectable that you took this role as a write-in and put in a lot of time and are continuing to come back. So, oh, one more thing, volleyball. I almost forgot about volleyball. Turns out we have one more game, and that's tomorrow. It's the tournament, so if we lose, we're done. But if we win, we keep going. So if you're on the volleyball team, better show up. Especially if you're a girl, because we need those. Because, and let me explain. Because it has to do with the rec rules. You need 3 girls and 3 guys on the court at all times. And we only have 4 girls that signed up for the team. So the moment one doesn't show up, every girl has to stay on the court. And then if 2 don't show up, we can't have 6 people on the court. So that's why. Probably should have clarified that first. But that's all I have. I yield. And thanks for a great term. Thank you.
Senator Becker.
Okay, speaking of sand volleyball, you're going to love this. Gamma Phi Beta's philanthropy is this Saturday. We'd love to see Beta Theta Pi there. And we're doing a sand volleyball tournament, and it's female empowerment in ages 9 through 13. So they run 5Ks, which is like crazy. And we just give them money. But I'd love to see the team there. That'd be awesome. Saturday, 12 to 2. Thanks.
Senator Mays.
I'm really happy we went out of this semester, or are going out with an argument or like debate on the floor, because we've been such a cohesive body, and I feel like all of us get along really well, that we just never really go against each other on the floor. And like, it's really great to see that we actually did it for once, just because we all have different opinions and everything like that. But I feel like a lot of people in this room, I've watched you guys grow as leaders. I watched you guys, take on more initiative on the floor, take on more initiative in student government and stuff like that. And it was really cool. I love watching everybody grow, and I'll consider all of you friends for a really long time. So yeah, I'm just being cheesy. I'm graduating, so I'm out of here. And I'm sure all the other graduating seniors feel the same way, but I don't know. I really appreciate my time in student government, and I hope any of you who are continuing your time really take on those networking opportunities and really try to grow good relationships with everybody. Thank you.
Director Matthews.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I just want to thank you guys for an amazing year. It's been amazing. I've climbed the ranks very quickly, I feel like, as a senator and then to a director. But I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everyone that's been here, that's volunteered their time. It's been truly an honor to work with every single person here. And then Cecil, recap. Thank you.
Senator Engelken.
I apologize. This is going to be a very silly and sappy speech because I am very sad. I am going to be graduating, and I'm sad that I have to leave this organization I've gone to love so much. After so much effort to try to be a senator, after emailing the blonde chick on the UROC website over 15 times and getting no response because that is from 2019, I think. I'm happy to finally be a senator and finally be able to pursue the projects I wanted to. I started as an at-large for Sustainability Committee, and I love that committee with all my heart. I almost started crying during our last meeting on Thursday because I love them so much. But I feel like with our 100 and something page transition document, we're being left in good hands, hopefully. I want to thank all of the excellent friends I've made along the way. Maybe the real stugov is the friends you make along the way. I just made that up in my head. It sounded better there. But I just want to thank you all. I made literally the best friends ever, and it's so sad to leave. And I literally tried to stay here for a bit. I'm like, how can I stay here for longer? But I can't because I want to go to law school. Well, I'm going to law school. But this is such a silly and sappy speech. I apologize. My thoughts are everywhere. I was going to organize them, but then I'm like, nah. So I just want to thank everyone, all of the excellent friends I've made, all of the great conversations we've had, including the ones about stipends. I also want to thank Jennifer and Jaden for all the hard work they put into it with me. I am genuinely happy we had that conversation, but end of the day, very happy. I've been here and I've made all of these excellent friends, and I'm excited to see the direction this organization goes in. I yield. Last yield.
All right, I'm gonna interject quick and do my closing announcements. You'll see why. I just want to thank all of you for a great and wonderful year. It's been a privilege to be able to chair this Student Senate this year, and so I thank all the students, and hopefully all of you, that voted for Ludwig Ulrich just about a year ago today. It's been a great time. How much growth has happened between, personally for Jacob and I hope I speak on your behalf there. But I'll be saving the rest of my SAP story for Friday, so you'll get to hear that edition later. But with this, I turn it over to the student body president, the 69th president, may I add, of the student body, and my best friend, Jacob Ludwig.
Really had to drag it out there for a little bit, didn't you? Next week will be the first time in over 4 years that I'm not going to be here on a Wednesday night. That's a little weird for me. This organization's been a big part of my experience at Iowa State, and I will, monologue more on that on Friday when I have a captive audience. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who served this year, for all the work that we did together. I really do think that we have left this campus better than we found it. And I think that we've set the next team up for success. And I think we all have a lot to be proud of. So just really want to say thank you for all that. I want to say thank you to Jaden, who is also my best friend, for serving alongside me, dealing with my ceaseless antics, and also being a completely absent roommate. But yeah, I think it's going to be weird for me not being here, but these have been some of my favorite experiences. The people I've met in this organization have been some of the smartest, most kind-hearted, passionate individuals, and I have no doubt that this will continue to be the best meeting that happens every week on campus going into the next year. So, thank you.
All right, and as always, coming down the pipeline, Vice Speaker Bruick.
Enough of that sob stuff, my lord. I am ready to be out of here. Oh, my lord. This insipid organization has taken up, 4 years of my life? Ugh. But being serious and not joking around, which I know is hard for me, I know. I've been in this organization since March of 2020. I distinctly remember walking home from the meeting I was confirmed to the Supreme Court, finding out that the NBA had canceled its entire season due to COVID, and then being sent home because of COVID about 2 days later. So my entrance in this organization was in the midst of quite a bit of turmoil in the entire world, and I think that that's a good allegory for the amount of turmoil this organization has wreaked upon my life. But I spent a lot of time here. I've been on the Supreme Court. I've been here as Vice Speaker. And I don't know if there's not much to say. I'm mostly deflecting with this humor because I don't know what else to say. I've been in this organization for a while. It's been the thing I've done on this campus besides, be a lame little student. And what can you say? I guess I just want to kind of go around to a few people and thank them. So I'll start with Eddie because, you know, why not? Eddie's been my guy in student government since he came up to me at the Halloween party and started asking me about Supreme Court cases, which, if you know me, is the way to my heart. Showing interest in things that are boring and suck is, you know, kind of my thing. So, you know, it's just, we've been speaker and vice speaker together. It's been a ride. There have been moments where it's been, you know, a tough job. There have been things that tried us both, and I think that we've come through it stronger. Got some big changes made within the structure of this organization, within our job as the people who do the rules. So that's been pretty cool. Shout out to Ludwig because I've been his stooge in the Senate many times. Many bills sent to me with my name on them as the author. And spoiler alert, that's not true. I did not write them. President Jacob Ludwig did, but he's not a senator anymore. So, you know, thanks for that. I'm bad with like sentimental stuff. I'm not good at this, so I guess I don't have anything else to say other than thank you all for being a good Senate. You've been a pretty swag Senate. It's pretty cool. And thank you for giving me one last full 45-minute debate just about before I leave this organization. Hadn't had one of those in a while. Was starting to wonder if I'd ever get one of those again. And, you know, there we go. Thank God. With that, I do yield to your 2022-2023 Speaker of the Senate, Edward Riley Mahoney.
All right. Before I launch in the sentimental stuff, I do want to just echo one thing that I've been saying the last couple of weeks, and that is for those of you who are returning as senators, I highly encourage all of you to think about running for Senate leadership. I see a lot of leaders in this room that would be really, really good sitting up at this table where Bruick and I are sitting right now. So please, if any of you have even the inkling of interest or want to know more about what we do, if you have any inkling of wanting to do it, please come talk to us. And also, for those of you who are not returning as a senator, I would highly encourage all of you to be at-larges on committees or apply for director position. There are a lot of leaders in this room that I really hope don't leave this organization completely, because I think we are all really capable of a lot of great change, and I want to continue to see that change happen. Apparently, Bruick has one more thing he forgot to say before I launch into my sentimentalities.
In the midst of being sentimental, I forgot to do business. After this meeting, I have invited some of the new senators. Some of them are here, and I'm going to do a little presentation to them on what Senate is. If you want to stay, super welcome. Some of you, it will be duplicate because it's kind of the stuff I already went over in the working meetings, but you're welcome to stay. It'll cover what this organization is. And if you're leaving, you know, maybe it'll help you remember if you forget. So, you know, keep this organization and its rules and bylaws in your heart. And then I'm done there.
All right. First off, it's sappy, but I want all of us to give ourselves a round of applause. We've really done a lot of amazing work this year. I've had the pleasure of getting to watch each and every one of you grow as leaders on campus. It's been a genuine pleasure to be speaker this year and help lead this organization and lead this wonderful Senate. You know, I don't think last year definitely was not nearly as cohesive as a body as this year. And while that was maybe a bit of a concern, I also think it's because we really do just kind of all are on the same page and really do want to fight and do what we think is best for students. And it really was just so cool to be able to be a part of this organization and be a part of the leadership. I do want to shout out a couple people, as is tradition for closing announcements on the last meeting. I have to start with Vice Speaker Bruick. He's been one of my best friends for the last well over a year. I remember having a conversation with him basically the day he came to me saying, I'm jumping from Chief Justice to Senate. Starting to say, all right, well, I want to be Speaker and Vice Speaker with you. We have really grown close over the last, especially year. All of the silly, stupid jokes we tell to each other, all the silly, stupid conversations in the office and hanging out at each other's place and Friday nights at Estas and so many fun memories. I want to shout out one of my best friends now, Charlotte. She and I have really gone close again over the last year. Too many nights spent hanging out with each other at places I won't mention because Sophie will have a heart attack. That's the running theme with a lot of people on this list. But also in that, Emily, Jaden, Ludwig, Kat, just such amazing friends. And we've had so many great conversations and so many fun nights, you know, playing trivia, Taco Tuesday, Mugs Night, just so many great memories. And also Brady, I hope we continue to get to play more Destiny because he's one of the few people I've known that plays it, and we have so much fun together when we get to. But really, there's so many friends in this organization I've made, and I'm excited to continue to make more friends next year. I'm excited to see so many people that are returning, and I will just be a normal senator next year. Being speaker takes a lot out of me. I'll hopefully be leadership in other ways, but for now, in student government, I'll just be a senator next year, and I'll just get to sit back and unwind a little bit. So for the last time ever, as speaker, move to adjourn. Go Cyclones.
Go Cyclones, and with that, this year is adjourned.